The news has left Hollywood in shock and a legendary actor facing every parent's worst nightmare. The cause of death of Victoria Jones, the 34-year-old daughter of Tommy Lee Jones, has now been officially confirmed, and the details are as heartbreaking as they are sobering. Victoria, who once appeared on screen as a child and briefly followed in her father's footsteps, was found unresponsive in the early hours of New Year's Day inside a luxury hotel in San Francisco. At first, there were only questions. Emergency services responded to a medical call in the middle of the night. Hotel staff had discovered a woman in her mid-30s who was not breathing. CPR was performed. Paramedics fought to save her. But it was too late. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has ruled that Victoria died from the toxic effects of cocaine, and her death has officially been classified as an accident. A single sentence in a medical report, yet behind it is a deeply complex story of struggle, family, and a father who had already tried to save his daughter long before this tragedy happened. When the news first broke, Tommy Lee Jones released a brief and dignified statement, thanking people for their prayers and asking for privacy. A quiet response from a man known for playing strong, controlled, and often stoic characters. But this is not a movie. This is a father mourning his child. Victoria was not just the daughter of an Oscar-winning actor. She had her own life, her own battles, and her own story. Born during Tommy Lee Jones' marriage to his second wife, Kimberly Cloughlin, she grew up largely away from the spotlight, even though she occasionally appeared beside her father at red carpets and film premieres. To the public, those moments looked like a normal Hollywood family. But behind the scenes, there had been growing concern. 2 years before her death, court records show that Tommy Lee Jones took a step no parent ever wants to take. He filed for a temporary conservatorship for his daughter. Not to control her life, but to protect it. The legal request revealed that Victoria had been placed on a psychiatric hold after authorities believed she could be a danger to herself or to others. According to the filing, the actor wanted a conservator appointed so that she could be transferred directly into a rehabilitation facility when she was released from the hospital. It was an attempt to intervene. An attempt to get her help. An attempt to keep her alive. A judge approved the temporary conservatorship. But later, the case was dismissed and formally ended. And now, looking back at those documents, they feel less like legal paperwork and more like a warning that went unheard by fate. Because just 2 years later, on the first day of a new year, a day that is supposed to represent fresh starts and second chances, Victoria's life came to an end. The San Francisco Police Department responded to the hotel after emergency crews had already arrived. An investigation was opened. For days, the cause of death remained unknown. And in that silence, there was hope. Hope that maybe it had been something else. Something reversible. Something that could be explained without this devastating conclusion. But the toxicology report told a different story. And with that report came a painful reality that so many families across the world understand. Addiction does not care about fame, wealth, or legacy. It reaches into every kind of home. Even the home of a Hollywood legend. What makes this story even more emotional is the fact that Tommy Lee Jones had already tried to step in legally to guide his daughter toward treatment. He had already seen the danger. He had already acted. And yet, like so many parents in similar situations, he was ultimately powerless against the choices, the illness, and the circumstances that followed. This is not just a celebrity news story. This is a story about how fragile life can be. About how someone can grow up in privilege and still face battles that money and status cannot solve. About how love from a parent, even a powerful and determined one, is sometimes not enough to change the outcome. Victoria's death has been ruled accidental, but the emotional impact is anything but. Because when a life ends this way, there is always the same haunting question. What if? What if the timing had been different? What if the help had come sooner? What if the conservatorship had continued? What if that night had gone another way? Questions that never bring answers. Only silence. And for Tommy Lee Jones, a man who has spent decades playing characters who control chaos and bring order to the world, this is a tragedy that cannot be fixed with a script, a performance, or a powerful final scene. Only grief. Only memories. Only the echo of a daughter he once held in his arms at film premieres, smiling for cameras, with an entire life ahead of her. Now, those images have become something else. They are not red carpet moments anymore. They are reminders of time, of how quickly it passes and how little control anyone truly has. As the world reacts to the news, the most important thing to remember is that behind the headlines is a real family experiencing real loss. Not a character, not a storyline, a father, a daughter, a life that ended far too soon. And in the end, this tragedy leaves a message that reaches far beyond Hollywood. Addiction is not a scandal. Mental health is not a rumor. And asking for help, or trying to give it, is never a sign of weakness. Because sometimes, the strongest people in the world are the ones who try to save someone they love, even when the ending is out of their hands.